Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kovacs here, Mishnah Yomi for Yud Gimel Adar, which is Tanit Esther, Erev Purim, is holding in Eduyot, first chapter, Mishnah 2 and 3 today. And since we're fasting today, let's talk about food. Shammai Omer Mikveh Challah. Shammai says when you take Challah, the minimum size of the dough that requires separation of Challah is a kav. A kav is the volume of 24 eggs. Hillel Omer Mikabayim. Hillel says you don't separate challah, at least on a biblical level, until you have 2 kav, 48 eggs. Now this dispute takes us way back a few years ago when we were learning Masechet Challah, chapter 2, Mishnah 7. In Challah, they say challah, the size of the challah is 1 out of 24 for a regular household baker, and 1 out of 48 for a commercial baker. So Shammai bases the measurement of the entire dough on the fact you take 1 out of 24 when you're baking, so 24 beitzim must be the significant amount, where as Hillel says 48 is significant because we take 1 out of 48 for commercial bakery, for nachtam. In any event, nowadays we don't take that much, we take only kazayas. The Mishnah as v'chachamim omrim, the sages say, lo k'divrei zeh, lo k'divrei zeh. They say the halacha l'maisa is not like Beis Shammai or like Beis Hillel, ele kavu mechetzia. It's 1.5. It's not 1, it's not 2, it's 1.5. Chayavin b'challah. That's how much dough to have to separate challah. Now they base this after a pasuk, Reshit Risotechem. Challah is called the first of your doughs. Doughs is plural, that means 2 doughs, and they learn how big a dough is because that was the manna was called a dough as well. Higdilu hamidot, when the measurements were increased, in Tzipori they had a rabbinical enactment that all of the measurements would now be 1/6 larger than the previous measure. Amru chamisha revayim chayavim. They said that 5 reva of flour made into a dough is chayav, is required to separate challah. Rabbi Yossi says chamisha paturin. If it's exactly 5 revayim, you don't actually need challah, at least not biblically. But chamisha ve'od, but a little bit more, chayavin. Now he doesn't actually disagree with his last statement. He just says when they recalculated the measurements, it was in what they added was an internal 1/6 of the original amount, not 1/6 of the later larger amount. So he says you need a little more. Now lemaisa, nowadays if you're making a dough with 8 2/3 cup wheat flour into the dough, you should separate challah without a blessing, without a bracha. This is according to the Star K. There's different opinions here. And with a bracha, if you have 12 1/4 cups of flour, it's about 3.5 pounds of dough, then you should make with a bracha. But some opinions say really it's not until you have 16 cups of flour, about 5 pounds, that's when you would definitely need a bracha. So please consult your local Orthodox baker. But that's just what the Star K guidance points out, and they point out you don't have to calculate 1/24 or 1/48. You take a kazayit, an olive's bulk, and that counts as challah nowadays, because nowadays it just gets burnt anyway and not given to the Kohanim to eat for lunch. Now on to Mishnah Gimel, jumping topics to Mikveh, the ritual purification body of water. Now a mikveh is formed out of rainwater, or certain ways to have water go across the ground and into the mikveh. But drawn water from buckets scooped out of the well, moved through kalim, such as pipes in some instances, that does not work for a mikveh. So what happens if you have a mikveh that's a little bit less than the required amount of 40 seah, and then someone throws in some drawn water? Does that mess up everything? You have to start over. Let's find out. Hillel Omer Melohin Mayim She'uvim Pauslin HaMikveh. Hillel says someone throws in the fullness of a hin of drawn water, Mayim She'uvim, Pauslin a mikveh. This mikveh is no good. Now really this puzzle is derabanan, rabbinical, so Hillel was a little makel and used the hin, which is the largest liquid measure mentioned in the Torah, as the problematic amount. And the Mishnah points out, Eila shedam chayav lamar b'lashon rabo. Really, a person has to say a halacha in the same wording as his rebbe, as his teacher. Now what they're getting at here is, according to the Gra, this is very poetic language, Melo hin. the fullness of a hin. But his Rebbeim said it exactly like that, so people wouldn't get the wrong impression, because hin mayim shuvim kind of sounds like in or ein mayim shuvim. That mayim shuvim would be no problem whatsoever. So they used a poetic language to help the students understand clearly. Other Mefarshim say that his teachers, Shmai and Avtalion, were gerim, and they couldn't always pronounce the hin with a little bit of a hey at the beginning. Sometimes they would say in, so maybe Hillel also said in, and then again the molo in becomes a very important modifier, so you know exactly what to say. The Shammai disagrees, says Tisha Kovin, 9 kov, which is actually 3 times the size of a hin. A hin is 3 kov, 9 kov is 3 times bigger. It's the minimum amount for a person to wash himself, so that's what's a significant amount of water. The Chachamim Omrim, the other sages, disagree. They say Lo K'divrei Zeh, Lo K'divrei Zeh. The Halacha L'maisa is not like Beis Shammai, not like Beis Hillel. Eila, rather, Ad Shebao Shnei Gardim, 2 weavers came up, and they came, remember what we said yesterday, they came to the Beis Midrash when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became Rosh Yeshiva and let everyone in who had a valid Mesorah to share with the sages and figure out what the halacha was. They came Mishar Ha'ashpot, Sheb Yerushalayim. They came from the Dung Gate in Yerushalayim, and that's a very poor neighborhood, a very low neighborhood, and weavers are considered, not very honored people typically. Ve'e'idu, but they testified to the yeshiva, Mishum Shemaya v'Avtalion, in the name of Shemaya and Avtalion, who they heard it from themselves. Shloshet lugim mayim shuvim, 3 lug of drawn water, pauslin et hamikveh. That's the amount to disqualify a mikveh that's almost full. The Kimu Chachamim et Divrehem. The sages upheld their words. They had valid testimony. Shemaya and Avtalion said this, so accepted that. But Hillel also learned from Shemaya and Avtalion. So wouldn't Hillel's opinion be correct too? So really, what they testified was that Shemaya and Avtalion later retracted from saying Melohin to saying 3 lug, and of course Hillel was right as well, but hadn't realized that his teachers had later retracted their opinion. Tizku l'mitzvot, Purim Sameach, Freilich and Purim.